Did you know that in medieval Italy, two entire cities went to war over a stolen wooden bucket? Imagine thousands of soldiers dying, political alliances crumbling, and decades of hatred, all because someone took a bucket from a well. This sounds completely absurd, right? But this actually happened in 1325. And if you think modern conflicts are petty, wait until you hear about the War of the Oaken Bucket. Stay with me, because this story will make you question everything you thought you knew about the reasons behind historical wars. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into one of the most bizarre and seemingly ridiculous conflicts in European history, the War of the Oaken Bucket. This is the story of how a simple wooden bucket became the symbol of a devastating war between two Italian states, Bologna and Modena, in 1325. In this video, we'll explore how a midnight raid to steal a bucket escalated into a full-scale war that lasted for years, involved thousands of soldiers, and reshaped the political landscape of medieval Italy. We'll uncover what really caused this conflict, whether it was actually about the bucket or something much deeper, and how this strange war became a legend that inspired poetry and literature for centuries. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the smallest sparks can ignite the biggest fires. To understand the War of the Oaken Bucket, we need to step back into medieval Italy of the early 14th century. This was a time when Italy wasn't a unified country but a collection of independent city-states, each fiercely protective of their territory, trade routes, and political independence. Bologna and Modena were two such city-states located in the northern region of Emilia-Romagna. Bologna was a wealthy, powerful city known for its university, which was founded in 1088 and was one of the oldest in Europe. It was a center of learning, trade, and political influence. Modena, on the other hand, was smaller but strategically important, controlling key trade routes through the Po Valley. But the real conflict wasn't just between these two cities. Medieval Italy was divided by a much larger political struggle between two factions, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. The Guelphs supported the Pope and papal authority, while the Ghibellines supported the Holy Roman Emperor. This wasn't just a religious dispute, it was about political control, economic dominance, and territorial expansion. Bologna was predominantly Guelph, supporting papal authority and maintaining strong ties with the papal states. Modena, however, was Ghibelline, aligned with the Holy Roman Emperor and the imperial faction. This fundamental political division meant that Bologna and Modena were natural enemies, representing opposing ideologies in the broader struggle for control of Italy. The tension between these cities had been building for decades. Trade disputes, territorial claims, border skirmishes, and political interference in each other's affairs had created a powder keg situation. Both cities had built strong military forces and had formed alliances with neighboring city-states that shared their political alignment. By the 1320s, the situation was particularly volatile. The Holy Roman Emperor Louis Roman IV was actively campaigning in Italy, trying to assert imperial authority against papal influence. Local conflicts were intensifying as each side tried to gain advantage in the broader political struggle. Now here's where the story becomes truly bizarre. On the night of November 15, 1325, a group of Modenese soldiers conducted a daring raid into Bologna. Their mission wasn't to capture strategic positions, steal gold, or kidnap important officials. They broke into the city and stole a wooden bucket from a well in the central piazza. This wasn't just any bucket, it was an ornate oaken bucket that served the main public well in Bologna's city center. But why would anyone risk their lives for a bucket? This is where historians have debated for centuries. Some believe it was a deliberate insult, stealing something symbolic of the city's daily life and civic pride. Others think it was meant as a humiliating prank, designed to show that Modena could penetrate Bologna's defenses at will. But here's the mystery that historians still argue about. Was the bucket really the cause of the war? Or was it just the final provocation in a conflict that was already inevitable? The theft happened, that much is documented. But what happened next seems almost impossible to believe. Bologna's response was swift and furious. The city council declared the theft an act of war. Within weeks, Bologna had mobilized its entire military force and declared that they would not rest until the bucket was returned, and Modena was punished for this outrageous insult. But Modena refused to return the bucket. In fact, they displayed it proudly in their city center as a trophy of their successful raid. This defiant act transformed what could have been a minor diplomatic incident into a matter of honor that neither side could back down from. The war that followed was anything but petty. Bologna assembled an army of over 30 zero soldiers, including mercenaries, allied troops from other Guelph cities, and even papal forces. Modena, despite being smaller, managed to gather around 7,000 defenders with support from Ghibelline allies and imperial troops. The decisive battle took place on November 15, 1325, exactly 1 year after the bucket theft near the village of Zappolino, just outside Modena. What happened that day shocked medieval Europe. When it comes to evidence about this war, we have multiple contemporary sources, though they sometimes contradict each other. The most detailed account comes from Bolognese chronicles, but these are obviously biased toward Bologna's perspective. Modena's records are fewer but provide a different viewpoint. Medieval chroniclers recorded that the Battle of Zappolino was one of the bloodiest conflicts in northern Italy up to that point. Contemporary sources estimate that over 2,000 soldiers died in a single day of fighting. The Bolognese army, despite vastly outnumbering Modena's forces, suffered a crushing defeat. The technical evidence shows that Modena's victory wasn't just luck. They used superior battlefield tactics, took advantage of defensive positions, and had better coordination between their cavalry and infantry units. Some military historians argue that Bologna's army was overconfident and poorly organized, expecting an easy victory against a smaller force. But here's where different theories emerge about what this war was really about. The traditional narrative says it was literally about the bucket, that medieval people were so concerned with honor and civic pride that they would die for symbolic objects. This theory suggests that in medieval society, insults to a city's dignity were considered legitimate causes for war. However, modern historians propose a completely different theory. They argue that the bucket theft was merely a convenient excuse for a war that both cities wanted to fight anyway. The real causes were economic competition, territorial disputes, and the broader Guelph-Ghibelline conflict that was tearing Italy apart. Economic evidence supports this theory. Bologna and Modena were competing for control of the same trade routes. Bologna wanted to expand its influence eastward, while Modena was trying to maintain its independence and access to lucrative markets. A war would allow the winner to dominate regional commerce. Political theories suggest that both cities were under pressure from their respective factions to demonstrate loyalty. Bologna needed to prove its commitment to the Guelph cause, while Modena wanted to show the imperial faction that it was a reliable ally worth protecting. Some historians even propose that the bucket theft was a false flag operation, that Bolognese leaders secretly arranged for the bucket to be stolen to give them an excuse to attack Modena, when the timing was politically advantageous. Archaeological evidence from the battlefield at Zappolino confirms the scale and intensity of the fighting. Weapons, armor fragments, and mass grave sites have been discovered that support contemporary accounts of the battle's brutality. Literary evidence also plays a role in our understanding. The poet Alessandro Tassoni wrote an epic mock, heroic poem called The Rape of the Bucket in 1622, which immortalized this conflict. While it's satirical, Tassoni had access to historical sources that are now lost, so his work provides clues about details that might otherwise be forgotten. So this was the complete story of the War of the Oaken Bucket, a conflict that started with the theft of a wooden bucket and ended with thousands of deaths and a reshaping of medieval Italian politics. Whether it was really about the bucket or deeper political and economic causes, this war demonstrates how quickly minor incidents can escalate into major conflicts when underlying tensions already exist. The bucket, by the way, still exists today. It's kept in the bell tower of Modena's cathedral, where it has remained for nearly 700 years as a trophy of their unlikely victory over the much larger Bologna. Modena never returned it, and Bologna eventually gave up asking for it back. But this story raises fascinating questions about human nature and conflict. How often do wars that seem to be about one thing actually have completely different underlying causes? In our modern world, do we still fight over symbols while the real issues remain hidden? And what does it say about medieval society that civic pride could motivate thousands of people to risk their lives? Let me know in the comments what you think was the real cause of this war. Was it actually about the bucket and medieval honor? Or were there deeper political and economic motivations? Have you ever seen modern conflicts that remind you of this bizarre medieval war? If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales from history. Next week, we'll explore another seemingly impossible historical event that will make you question what you thought you knew about the past. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.